My name is Harper Johnson, and at 29, I just sold my cybersecurity startup for $40 million. Yet somehow, I'm still the family disappointment. Last week, my mother's text flashed across my screen, "You're not allowed at our vacation home." The capital letters really drove her point home. What she didn't expect was my response. 7 days later, my family stood frozen in the lobby of their favorite resort, staring at the new owner, me. Before I tell you how I went from banned black sheep to resort owner in 7 days, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and subscribe to join my journey of reclaiming my worth. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, in a house that always seemed too perfect. Our lawn was manicured weekly, the white colonial exterior painted every 2 years without fail, and family photos updated annually with everyone wearing coordinating outfits. My mother, Karen Johnson, was Miss Connecticut 1989 before she married my father and channeled her energy into becoming the queen of local charity committees. She runs the annual hospital gala with military precision and judges other women's contributions with a smile that never reaches her eyes. My father, Richard Johnson, built his career at Morgan Stanley, working 60-hour weeks and measuring success in year-end bonuses and country club memberships. He taught us that reputation was everything and appearances mattered above all else. Work hard, look good, and never let anyone see you sweat. The Johnson family motto might as well have been embroidered on pillows throughout our house. My older brother Jason is 33 now and followed my father straight into finance after graduating from Princeton. He wears custom suits, plays golf with clients on Saturdays, and married Stephanie, a former sorority president who now sits on the same charity boards as our mother. They have 2 perfectly behaved children who already attend the right preschool. My sister Amanda, 31, married Dr. Gregory Phillips right after finishing her art history degree at Brown. She's never worked a day in her life but manages to look effortlessly put together while organizing their social calendar and redecorating their Westchester home seasonally. Her Instagram account is a carefully curated showcase of domestic bliss. And then there's me, the middle child who could never quite fit the mold. I asked too many questions at family gatherings. I wore black when everyone else wore pastels. I refused to join the debutante ball, causing my mother to take to her bed with a migraine for 3 days. "Harper, why must you always be so difficult?" became my mother's refrain throughout my teenage years. I did what was expected of me long enough to get into Yale, making my parents temporarily proud. But halfway through law school, I discovered my passion for cybersecurity during a specialized course. I saw a gap in the market for financial protection software and knew I had to pursue it. When I told my parents I was dropping out to start my company, Security Shield, you would have thought I'd announced I was joining a cult. The infamous Thanksgiving of 2017 still haunts me. My father pounded his fist on our mahogany dining table, rattling the fine china. "This is absolutely delusional, Harper. People spend their lives trying to get into Yale Law, and you're throwing it away for some computer fantasy? No daughter of mine is going to become a college dropout with nothing to show for it." My mother dabbed at her eyes with a linen napkin. "What will I tell the Hendersons? Their daughter just made junior partner at her firm, and now mine is, what exactly? A hacker." Jason avoided eye contact, suddenly fascinated by his cranberry sauce. Amanda whispered something to Gregory, who nodded sympathetically. No one stood up for me. I left that night with a small suitcase and moved into a tiny Brooklyn apartment with 2 roommates. For 7 years, I worked 18-hour days, survived on ramen and coffee, and built my company from nothing. I hired brilliant programmers, pitched to countless investors, and weathered near bankruptcy twice before Security Shield became the leading protection software for mobile banking. 3 months ago, a major tech corporation acquired us for $40 million. My share after paying my investors and rewarding my loyal team came to just over $20 million. The Wall Street Journal ran a profile on me. Forbes included me in their 30 under 30 list. Former classmates who never returned my calls suddenly wanted to reconnect. And my family? They sent a group text, "Congratulations on your lucky break, Harper." Lucky, as if 7 years of relentless work was winning the lottery. Last Christmas was the first time I'd been home since the acquisition. Mother insisted I come, probably because several of her friends had mentioned the article about me. "This is Harper." She introduced me to a couple I'd never met before. Our daughter, who finally found her footing after a rough patch. A rough patch. That's how she described building a multi-million-dollar company from scratch. Later that night, my father cornered me by the bar. "Smart move, selling when you did. Tech bubbles always burst eventually. You should talk to Jason about investment strategies before you blow through it all." Jason, whose hedge fund had underperformed the market 3 years running. Jason, who still called me little sis despite my company being valued higher than his entire investment portfolio. Amanda simply asked if I was finally going to do something about my wardrobe now that I could afford it, while her husband Gregory avoided me entirely, probably because he declined to invest when I approached him during my first funding round, saying my business model was fundamentally flawed. Despite everything, some childish part of me still craved their approval. I wanted them to be proud of me, to see me as successful on my own terms. I thought maybe, just maybe, my financial success would finally translate into something they understood and respected. I couldn't have been more wrong. For 20 years, the Johnson family has spent the second week of August at Blue Water Cove Resort in coastal Maine. It started when I was 9 years old, after my father received his first major promotion. We traded our usual road trips for something more befitting our new position, as my mother put it. Blue Water Cove isn't just any resort, it's old money New England at its finest. Weathered cedar shingles, hydrangea bushes bigger than golf carts, and a fleet of sailboats bobbing in the protected harbor. The kind of place where staff remember your name and your cocktail preference from year to year. The crown jewel of the property is Villa Serenity, a 3-bedroom oceanfront cottage with a wraparound porch and private access to a small cove. My parents booked it that first year and every year since. My mother claimed it was the only villa with proper morning light and the right distance from the main lodge, close enough for convenience but far enough for privacy. In those early years, Blue Water Cove felt magical to me. My father would temporarily forget about work calls and build elaborate sandcastles with us. My mother would relax her rigid rules about appropriate behavior. We'd have lobster cookouts on the beach, learning to crack shells and extract the sweet meat while butter dripped down our chins. Even Jason was fun back then, teaching me to skim stones across the calm morning water before the other guests woke up. Every year on our last evening, we'd dress up for a formal family photo on the villa's porch, the sunset painting the sky behind us. Those framed photos lined our hallway at home, a visual timeline of the Johnson family's picture-perfect existence. As a teenager, I started feeling the disconnect between the vacation facade and our real family dynamic. While my siblings easily played their roles, I struggled to maintain the performance for a full week. By the time I was 16, I'd bring extra books to read on the beach, separating myself from family activities. "Harper, do try to be present," my mother would scold. "We only have this time together once a year." But this year was supposed to be different. My father's 60th birthday fell during our Blue Water Cove week, and for the first time, I could contribute financially to the celebration. More than contribute, I could fund the entire thing. I called the resort in June and arranged to upgrade everyone's experience. I reserved the adjacent villa for Jason's family, so the kids would have more space. I booked Amanda and Gregory the couple's spa package they always talked about but never splurged on. For my parents, I arranged a private sunset cruise with champagne and a gourmet dinner. The centerpiece of my plan was my father's birthday gift, a Patek Philippe Nautilus with a custom blue dial that matched the waters of Blue Water Cove. It cost $15,000 and took 3 months to acquire. I had it engraved with his initials and the coordinates of the resort. It was exactly the kind of thoughtful, luxurious gift that would speak his language. 2 weeks before the trip, I called the resort's activities director and arranged for a professional photographer to capture my father opening the gift during a private family dinner. I wanted to create a new memory, one where I wasn't the disappointment, but the daughter who understood what mattered to him. I spent thousands on a new vacation wardrobe, choosing pieces my mother would approve of, linen dresses in appropriate lengths, tasteful swimwear, and even the pearl earrings she'd been suggesting I buy since college graduation. I researched activities everyone would enjoy, from sailing excursions for my father and Jason to a watercolor class Amanda would love. The night before I was set to leave, I called my best friend Zoe from college, the one person who'd stood by me through the lean startup years. I think this is going to be a turning point for us, I told her, folding my new clothes into my suitcase. They can't ignore my success anymore. I'm picking up the entire tab for the week. Zoe was silent for a moment. Harper, you know money isn't going to fix your relationship with them, right? They've been dismissing your choices for years. This is different, I insisted. I'm meeting them on their terms now. Success they can understand. A gesture they can't minimize. Just keep your expectations in check, she warned. People don't change overnight, even when presented with a platinum credit card. I brushed off her concern. You'll see. This is the vacation where they finally accept me for who I am. I had even booked first-class flights for everyone as a surprise. I imagined their faces when they received the upgraded boarding passes, impressed, grateful, finally seeing me as the successful adult I'd become. I went to sleep that night feeling hopeful, my new Louis Vuitton luggage packed and ready by the door, the watch box nestled safely inside. The morning of our departure, I was in my Manhattan loft, doing a final check of my suitcase. I'd just folded my new Zimmermann swimsuit when my phone buzzed with a text. Assuming it was the car service I'd booked, I glanced down casually. It was from my mother. Harper, after family discussion, we've decided it would be best if you didn't join us at Blue Water Cove this year. Your presence would disrupt the harmony we're trying to create for your father's birthday celebration. I'm sure you understand. We'll celebrate with you another time. I read it 3 times, certain I'd misunderstood. I called my mother immediately, my hands shaking. What do you mean I can't come? I demanded when she answered. I've already booked everything. I have Dad's gift. My mother's voice was cool and detached, the tone she used when dismissing household staff. Harper, this isn't up for debate. We've made our decision as a family. What family discussion? No one discussed anything with me. A delicate sigh. Your brother and sister agree it would be better this way. There's been so much attention on you lately with that business sale. Your father's birthday should be about him, not overshadowed by your recent windfall. I sank onto my bed, still clutching the swimsuit. Mom, I wanted to treat everyone. I booked first-class tickets. I got Dad an amazing gift. That's exactly the problem, dear. It's excessive. Amanda told me Gregory feels quite uncomfortable since he lost money investing in that company competing with yours. And Jason's having a difficult quarter at work. Your flaunting your money would make things terribly awkward. Flaunting? I was trying to do something nice for everyone. And then there's the publicity, she continued as if I hadn't spoken. The Richardsons saw that article about you and asked all sorts of questions at Bridge Club. It's becoming a bit much, Harper. We just want a quiet family vacation without having to explain your unconventional choices to everyone we know. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My success, which had come without any support from them, was now an inconvenience, an embarrassment, something to hide from their country club friends. Let me talk to Dad, I said, my voice catching. 10 minutes later, my father called back. I could hear the hesitation in his voice. Princess, you know I'd love to have you there, but your mother has planned everything very specifically. The reservations are made. Maybe it's better to let this one go and we'll plan something special later. Just you and me. It was the same line he'd used throughout my childhood whenever he chose not to stand up to my mother. A promise of future connection that never materialized. Dad, I bought you something really special for your birthday. I wanted to give it to you in person. You can mail it, he suggested, then added, or keep it until we see you at Christmas. Christmas. For months away. After hanging up, I tried Jason, hoping my brother might intervene. His response came by text. Just give it a year, sis. You know how mom is when she gets an idea in her head. Dad's birthday isn't worth the drama. We'll miss you, though. My last hope was Amanda. Surely my sister would understand how hurtful this exclusion felt. Look, Harper, she said when I called, her voice lowered as if someone might overhear. Maybe if you tried fitting in for once, these things wouldn't happen. You've always had to do things your own way, and sometimes that has consequences. Greg is still sensitive about that investment, and mom's dealing with all her friends suddenly asking about you instead of her charity work. Can't you just let us have this 1 week without making it about you? Making it about me. As if being excluded from a 20-year family tradition was my choice. After hanging up, I walked to my living room window overlooking the city. Tears streamed down my face as I scrolled through my phone gallery to a folder labeled Blue Water. Photos from last year's trip and the year before and every year since I was 9. My family on the beach, around the dinner table, on the villa's porch for the annual photo. Always together. Until now. My laptop pinged with an email notification. My flight confirmation had been canceled. My mother had already taken care of that detail, efficiently erasing my presence from their perfect family vacation. That night, I opened an expensive bottle of wine I'd been saving to share with my father. I drank it alone in my apartment, surrounded by new vacation clothes I wouldn't wear, staring at the watch box containing a gift that suddenly seemed pathetic, a desperate bid for approval from a man who couldn't even stand up for me. I'd spent 7 years building a company, proving my worth to the world, becoming financially independent beyond what even my father had achieved. And still, it wasn't enough to earn me a place at the family table. The rejection stung worse than any business setback I'd ever faced. You can develop thick skin for professional criticism, but family rejection cuts through every defense. As I poured the last of the wine, a thought occurred to me. $20 million couldn't buy my family's acceptance, but it could buy something else. They did what? Zoe nearly spilled her mimosa across the brunch table 3 days after my mother's text. We were sitting at our favorite spot in the West Village, the weekend crowd buzzing around us. I pushed my untouched avocado toast aside. Banned me from the family vacation. Via text message. That's beyond cold. That's Antarctic. Zoe shook her head. So, what are you going to do now? Solo trip to Bali? You deserve it after everything you've built. I don't know. I've barely left my apartment since it happened. Zoe studied me for a moment, then laughed suddenly. You know what would be epic? You should buy the damn resort. I stared at her, then let out a short laugh. Right. Just by Blue Water Cove. Why not? You have fuck you money now, Harper. Might as well use it for an actual fuck you. I laughed again, but the idea lodged in my mind. Was Blue Water Cove even for sale? How much would a coastal Maine luxury resort cost? When I got home, I found myself Googling Blue Water Cove resort ownership. To my surprise, a recent local business article appeared. Blue Water Cove resort owner considering retirement. Property may hit market. Frank Williams, the owner for the past 30 years, was looking to sell. No formal listing yet, but the article mentioned he was entertaining serious offers. My heart raced. This couldn't be coincidence. It felt like the universe was offering me a chance at, what? Revenge? Redemption? Maybe both. I called my financial advisor, Garrett, immediately. Harper, it's Sunday afternoon, he answered, surprise in his voice. How quickly can I liquidate $3 million in stocks? I asked without preamble. A couple of days, but why would you want to? The tech sector is performing well right now, and your portfolio. What about 15 million? Silence. Then, Harper, what's going on? Are you in some kind of trouble? Just the opposite. I think I found an investment opportunity. How soon can you meet? Monday morning, Garrett sat across from me in his midtown office, reviewing property prospectus materials I'd gathered overnight. A resort? Harper, hospitality is completely outside your expertise. The maintenance costs alone on a property this size. The current owner has kept detailed financial records, I interrupted, sliding a spreadsheet across the desk. The property is undervalued because he hasn't modernized or maximized revenue streams. There's huge potential for expanded shoulder season bookings with the right marketing approach. Garrett studied the numbers, frowning. Even so, this would be committing a significant portion of your net worth to a single, illiquid asset. After taxes on your acquisition payout, $20 million isn't as much as it sounds for someone your age. I don't need to buy it outright. I can leverage financing for part of it. And this has nothing to do with your family vacationing there next week? Garrett raised an eyebrow. Zoe must have told her husband, who played golf with Garrett monthly. I met his gaze steadily. It's a sound business decision with personal benefits. By that afternoon, I had approval to liquidate enough stocks to make a competitive offer. I chartered a private flight to Portland, Maine for that evening. The next morning, I met Frank Williams at Bluewater Cove. He was in his 70s, with weathered skin from decades of coastal living and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. Miss Johnson, your family has been coming here for years. Your mother always insists on Villa Serenity. He chuckled. I didn't realize you were the same Johnson from that tech company sale. Impressive achievement for someone so young. We walked the grounds as he shared the resort's history, from its origins as a small into the luxury destination it had become under his stewardship. My wife passed 3 years ago, he explained as we toured the main lodge. She was the heart of this place. Without her, it doesn't feel right continuing. But I've been waiting for the right buyer, someone who understands the soul of Bluewater Cove. Frank showed me everything, not just the pristine public areas, but the aging infrastructure behind the scenes. The kitchen equipment needing updates, the staff quarters requiring renovation, the booking system still partially managed on paper. Why not sell to a hotel chain? I asked as we walked along the private beach. They'd certainly pay premium. Frank grimaced. Hot offers. Hilton, Four Seasons. They'd gut the character, standardize everything. Our repeat guests come for the unique experience. Like your family, 20 years of memories in the same villa. I felt a pang at that. 20 years of memories I was now excluded from. As the sun set, we sat on the deck of the main restaurant overlooking the harbor. Frank shared the resort's financials, the summer season profitability, the winter struggles, the untapped potential for weddings and corporate retreats. The asking price is $18.5 million, he said finally. But for the right buyer, someone who'll preserve what matters while bringing fresh ideas. I might be flexible. That night, I stayed in Villa Serenity, the same villa my family would occupy in just 5 days. I walked the familiar rooms, running my fingers along the weathered wooden furniture, standing on the porch where we'd taken 20 years of family photos. Instead of feeling sad, I felt a growing sense of determination. This place had always represented the brief moments when my family functioned as a unit. What if I could transform it into something that represented my independence instead? I called my lawyer, Diane, from the villa's porch, the sound of waves crashing below. I need you to prepare an offer on a property. And I need the deal closed within 5 days. 5 days? Harper, real estate transactions of this magnitude typically take. The seller is motivated, and I'm offering cash for a significant portion. We'll need to work around the clock, but it's possible. The next morning, I signed a preliminary purchase agreement with the final closing set for the day before my family's arrival. Frank would stay on as a consultant for the transition, and I'd retain all current staff with increased wages. As I shook Frank's hand, he smiled knowingly. Your mother always said you were the rebel in the family. I think Bluewater Cove could use a bit of rebellion. I spent the next 4 days assembling a team and crafting my plan. This wasn't just about showing up my family anymore. It was about claiming something for myself, creating a vision that was entirely mine. The moment the final papers were signed, I became the owner of Blue Water Cove Resort. For days before my family's arrival, I had an enormous task ahead. We need to prioritize, I told Sara, the operations manager who'd worked at the resort for 15 years. Villa Serenity comes first, then the main lodge, entrance, and restaurant. I'd brought a team of contractors from Portland, offering substantial bonuses for the rush job. Interior designer Maxwell flew in from New York with fabric samples and furniture catalogs. The goal isn't to completely transform the place, I explained during our first all-staff meeting. Blue Water Cove's charm is in its history and character. We're enhancing, not replacing. The staff seemed cautiously optimistic about the changes, especially after I announced an immediate 15% raise for everyone and improved healthcare benefits. Ms. Johnson understands our traditions, Sara assured the hesitant housekeeping team. Her family has been coming here for decades. We worked around the clock. Villa Serenity received new luxury bedding with thread counts that would impress even my mother. The bathrooms were updated with rainfall shower heads and heated floors. Smart home features were discreetly integrated, automated blinds, temperature controls, and a sound system that could be controlled by phone. I personally supervised the removal of my mother's beloved porcelain vase, a gaudy blue monstrosity she insisted on displaying prominently whenever we stayed. In its place went a commissioned piece from a local Maine artist, a subtle nod to the region's maritime history. The family photos that traditionally lined the mantel were replaced with black and white photographs of the cove taken at different times of day. Beautiful, but impersonal. In the main lodge, we refreshed the lobby with new furnishings that complemented the existing architecture. The restaurant received new linens and place settings, and I worked with the chef to recreate the Johnson family's traditional first-night dinner, lobster boil with corn and potatoes, but with upscale twists that elevated it beyond what they were used to. I added a champagne delivery service to the beachfront, something my mother had always wished for but the resort hadn't offered. Imagine if we could have bubbly brought right to our chairs, she'd say every year. Now guests could, but my family would learn it had been my innovation. 3 days in, exhausted but exhilarated, I found my perspective shifting. What had begun as an elaborate revenge plot was evolving into something more meaningful. I genuinely loved this place, had loved it since childhood. Now I could shape its future, preserve what made it special while bringing it into a new era. "You're a natural at this," Sara commented as we reviewed reservation systems. Most new owners would just install generic luxury touches without understanding what makes Blue Water special. The night before my family's arrival, we prepared their welcome package, a bottle of my father's favorite scotch, artisanal chocolates, and a note signed by the management welcoming them back for another year. No mention of the ownership change. That revelation I wanted to deliver personally. I barely slept that night, my mind racing between doubt and determination. Was this the most expensive tantrum in history? Or a shrewd business move that would also help me reclaim my narrative? At dawn, I called Zoe on FaceTime, showing her the renovated villa. "You actually did it. You magnificent crazy person, you bought a resort to spite your family." She shook her head, grinning. "It's not just about them anymore," I insisted. "This place has serious potential." "But yes, I'm looking forward to their faces when they find out." "What exactly is your endgame here, Harper?" "You dropped the ownership bomb and then what?" I hadn't thought that far ahead. "I guess I just want them to see me. Really see me. Not as the family disappointment, but as someone who succeeded on my own terms." "Well, you've certainly guaranteed they can't ignore you now. Just be prepared for the fallout. Your mother isn't going to take this lying down." At 3 p.m., I positioned myself in the lobby, dressed in a casual but expensive linen dress, a small owner pin discreetly attached to my lapel. Through the front windows, I watched my parents' Audi pull into the circular drive, followed by Jason's Range Rover. My heart hammered against my ribs. After a lifetime of seeking their approval, I was about to flip the script entirely. The resort's front doors swung open. My father entered first, sunglasses perched on his head, looking relaxed in a way he only ever did at Blue Water Cove. My mother followed, already scanning the lobby with a critical eye. Behind them came Jason and Stephanie with their children, then Amanda and Gregory, all carrying designer luggage and wearing expressions of familiar entitlement. I watched from near the reception desk as they registered the subtle changes to the space, the new lighting fixtures, the updated furniture, the staff's crisp new uniforms with the redesigned logo I'd approved just days earlier. "The place looks different," my father commented to the receptionist, a new hire named Thomas who'd been thoroughly briefed on the situation. "Yes, sir. We've had some recent updates," Thomas replied smoothly. "Welcome back to Blue Water Cove, Mr. Johnson." My mother frowned slightly. "The hydrangea arrangements are different. We always have blue hydrangeas in the lobby, not this mixture." "I apologize, Mrs. Johnson." "I'll make a note of your preference," Thomas said, not mentioning that I'd personally selected the new floral design. "And our villa?" she continued. "Villa Serenity is prepared exactly as we requested. Same configuration as last year." Thomas glanced at me, the signal we'd arranged. "There have been some updates to the accommodations as well, but I believe you'll find everything most interesting." That was my cue. I stepped forward, my heart pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it. "Hello, family," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. 6 heads whipped around simultaneously. My mother's hand flew to her pearl necklace, her tell when she's shocked. "Harper." My father looked genuinely confused. "What are you doing here?" "I thought you understood." "What I understand," I interrupted, stepping closer, "is that you're checking into my resort." Silence fell across the lobby. Even my young niece and nephew seemed to sense the tension, pressing closer to their mother. "You're what?" Jason finally managed. "I believe the correct greeting is congratulations on your new business venture," I replied, forcing a smile. "I purchased Blue Water Cove Resort earlier this week." My mother's face flushed red. "This is ridiculous. Another one of your rebellious stunts. Frank would never sell this place to." "Frank Williams retired officially 3 days ago," I cut in. "He's staying on as a consultant during the transition. He sends his regards to you, Mom. Said you'll be pleased with the heated floors we installed in Villa Serenity's master bath. You've apparently been mentioning the cold tiles for years." My father's mouth opened and closed without sound. Jason let out a nervous laugh that died quickly when no one joined him. "This is a joke," Amanda said flatly. "It has to be." I turned to Thomas. "Please show the Johnson family to Villa Serenity. Their usual accommodation has been prepared, on the house of course." The walk to the villa was excruciating. My mother marched ahead with rigid posture, while my father kept glancing at me with an unreadable expression. Jason peppered me with questions about the purchase price and financing structure, his investment banker brain unable to process the situation any other way. Amanda refused to look at me at all, while her husband Gregory suddenly seemed fascinated by the resort landscaping. Only my niece and nephew acted normally, skipping alongside me and asking if I owned the swimming pool too and could they stay up late since their aunt was the boss. When we reached Villa Serenity, I unlocked the door with my master key and stepped aside. My mother entered first, her sharp intake of breath audible as she registered the changes to her familiar domain. "What have you done?" she whispered, moving from room to room. "Where is my vase? Where are our family photos?" "I've updated the decor," I said simply. The resort needed a refresh. "You've erased us," she accused, her voice rising. 20 years of family history." "Funny," I replied, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "That's exactly what you did to me when you uninvited me from this trip." My father intervened, ever the peacekeeper. "Let's all calm down. Harper, while this is certainly unexpected, Perhaps we can discuss this civilly over dinner. Dinner was set for 7 at the resort's main restaurant, now featuring a new menu I'd developed with the chef. My family arrived together, having apparently spent the intervening hours in shocked discussion without me. They fell silent as I approached their table. I'd changed into a sleek black dress, nothing flashy, but unmistakably expensive. The kind of quiet luxury my mother had always tried to achieve. I took the liberty of ordering my father's favorite wine, I said, gesturing to the decanted bottle. 1996 Chateau Margaux. Happy birthday, Dad. Harper, my mother began immediately. This has gone far enough. Whatever point you're trying to make. Karen, my father cut her off, surprising everyone. He turned to me. Harper, how did you manage this? The resort must have cost. $18 million, I supplied, though I negotiated favorable terms. Gregory choked on his water. Even in his medical practice, he'd never handled numbers that large. But your company sold for 40, and after taxes and paying your team. Jason's financial brain was working overtime. This represents most of my liquid assets, I acknowledged. But it's a sound investment. Bluewater Cove has untapped potential, especially in extending the season with corporate retreats and destination weddings. You spent your entire fortune on a temper tantrum, my mother said. Because we asked for one family vacation without drama. The table fell silent again. The server brought our appetizers, locally sourced seafood presented with an artistry the resort's previous menu had never achieved. This isn't about you uninviting me, I said carefully, though we all knew that wasn't entirely true. This is about me finding value in something you all took for granted. This place has meant something to me for 20 years too. So you're going to run a resort now? Amanda finally spoke, skepticism dripping from every word. With no hospitality experience? After one successful tech exit, you think you can just jump into a completely different industry. Before I could answer, my father surprised me again. She built a cybersecurity company from nothing with no experience in that industry either, he said quietly. Perhaps we should stop underestimating what Harper can accomplish. My mother's silverware clattered against her plate. Jason's eyebrows shot up. I stared at my father, momentarily speechless. The rest of the dinner unfolded with tense conversation about the resort's operations, my plans for modernization, and careful avoidance of the real issues beneath the surface. My mother picked at her food, making occasional cutting remarks about the menu changes. Gregory remained uncomfortable, likely remembering his dismissive response to my investment opportunity years ago. Amanda seemed torn between lingering resentment and reluctant admiration as other guests stopped by to compliment the restaurant's new direction. As dessert was served, my mother abruptly stood. I find I've lost my appetite. Richard, are you coming? To everyone's shock, my father shook his head. I'd like to finish my conversation with Harper. I'll join you later. After she left, an awkward silence fell over the table. One by one, the others made excuses to leave until only my father and I remained. He swirled the last of his wine, studying it in the candlelight. You know, I started at Morgan Stanley as a mail clerk. This was news to me. I thought you went straight from business school to the trading desk. He smiled ruefully. That's the story I let your mother tell at parties. Truth is, I worked my way up from nothing. No connections, no Ivy League degree. Just determination and long hours. I'd never heard this version of his history before. When you dropped out of Yale, it terrified me, he continued. I saw my child rejecting the safety net I'd spent my life building for you. I wasn't rejecting you, Dad. I was following my passion, just like you must have done. He nodded slowly. I see that now. Too late, probably. He reached across the table, taking my hand. I'm proud of you, Harper. Not just for this grand gesture, though I have to admit it's quite something. I'm proud of the determination you've shown these past 7 years. Building something from nothing, that takes real courage. My throat tightened. After all this time, all this effort, the words I'd longed to hear. Why didn't you ever say anything? When I was struggling, when I needed support. He looked away, shame crossing his features. Cowardice, partly. And partly because I convinced myself you needed to prove it to yourself, without a safety net. The way I did. He squeezed my hand. I was wrong. I should have been there. For the first time in years, we shared a genuine moment of connection. My father walked me out to the resort's dock, where we stood watching the moonlight on the water. Your mother will come around, he said, though we both knew that might not be true. She's just shocked. We all are. But this place, you owning it, maybe it's fitting. You always saw Blue Water Cove differently than the rest of us. How so? For Karen, it was about status. For the kids, tradition. For me, I suppose it was the 1 week I allowed myself to relax. He looked at me. But you always saw the magic in it. The potential. Even as a little girl, you'd explore every corner, talk to the staff, learn how everything worked. Before we parted for the night, he hugged me, a real hug, not the stiff embrace of obligation we'd shared in recent years. I think I'll like having my daughter as my host, he said with a small smile. Especially if you keep stalking that Margot. The remaining days of my family's vacation unfolded with a complex mix of tension and tentative reconnection. My mother maintained a chilly distance, taking breakfast in the villa rather than joining the others at the main restaurant. But even her resistance began to show cracks when guests repeatedly complimented the resort's new touches, often within her earshot. My father's 60th birthday celebration became a turning point. I'd kept my original plan for a private sunset cruise, though now as owner rather than just generous daughter. As we sailed along the coastline, the catering staff serving his favorite seafood dishes, a genuine warmth began to permeate our family dynamic. When the moment came to present his gift, I felt unexpectedly nervous. The Patek Philippe box seemed suddenly inadequate. What was a watch compared to buying an entire resort? I had this made for you months ago, I explained, handing him the box. Before everything. He opened it slowly, his eyes widening at the blue-faced timepiece nestled inside. He turned it over to read the engraving, his initials and the coordinates of Blue Water Cove. Harper, this is... For the first time in my life, I saw my father at a loss for words. He carefully put the watch on, then embraced me. Thank you. It's perfect. Later that evening, as we returned to shore, Jason approached me at the stern of the boat. So, he began awkwardly, how's the transition going? Running a resort must be a massive operational challenge. It was the first genuine interest he'd shown in any of my professional endeavors. Steep learning curve, I admitted. The hospitality industry has completely different metrics than tech. I'm drinking from a fire hose right now. He nodded, looking thoughtful. You know, my background in financial planning could be useful. If you're interested in optimizing your revenue streams, seasonal staffing models. I studied my brother's face, seeing something I hadn't noticed before, a hunger for meaningful work, perhaps even a touch of envy for my bold career moves. Actually, I said, I could use someone with your expertise. The resort's books are solid but old-fashioned. There's potential to modernize our financial approach, especially for off-season sustainability. A spark lit in Jason's eyes, the same spark I'd felt when building Security Shield. I could look things over while I'm here. Give you some initial thoughts. By the next morning, Jason had commandeered a desk in the resort office, spreadsheets open on his laptop, already deep in conversation with the accounting team. He looked more engaged than I'd seen him in years. Amanda proved a harder nut to crack, maintaining a polite distance until our third day, when she overheard two guests raving about the resort's new look. The previous design was so dated, one woman told her friend by the pool. Whoever did this renovation has an amazing eye. Later, Amanda approached me hesitantly. The new textiles in the villa's living room. Who chose those? I worked with a designer, but the final selections were mine, I replied, bracing for criticism. She nodded slowly. They're really good. The way you've updated everything while keeping the original character." She trailed off, looking uncomfortable with the compliment. "I learned a lot about design aesthetics from you. Actually, I offered. All those home renovation projects you're always working on." A small smile. "Really? Your Instagram is basically a masterclass in coastal New England interiors." This tiny olive branch opened a door. The next day, Amanda tentatively suggested some tweaks to the villa's bedroom layout. By the following afternoon, she was helping coordinate a photo shoot for the resort's new brochure, styling scenes with a natural talent I hadn't fully appreciated before. Even Gregory thawed slightly after overhearing me handle a minor crisis with the kitchen staff. "You're good at this," he admitted grudgingly. "Managing people, I mean. I always thought tech CEOs were just coders who got lucky. Most of building a company is about people, not technology," I told him. "Something medical practice has probably taught you too." My mother remained the final holdout, maintaining a dignified distance until the evening before their departure. I found her alone on Villa Serenity's porch, watching the sunset, a sunset I now owned, in some strange way. "I suppose you'll be changing the name next," she said as I approached. "Something modern and trendy to replace a century of tradition." "Actually, no," I sat in the adjacent chair. "Bluewater Cove stays Bluewater Cove. Some things shouldn't change." She was quiet for a moment. "You've always delighted in opposing me, Harper. From the moment you could form complete sentences." "I wasn't opposing you, Mom. I was just being myself. And now you've gone to extraordinary lengths to prove your point. Buying our family vacation spot? It's unprecedented even for you." I took a deep breath. It wasn't about opposing you. Not entirely, anyway. It was about claiming something that matters to me. On my terms. She studied me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Your father thinks you'll be brilliant at this. Jason too, surprisingly. And what do you think?" She smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her linen pants. "I think you've always been determined to forge your own path, regardless of the advice or traditions others might offer." A pause. "Perhaps that determination will serve you well here." It wasn't quite approval, but from my mother, it was significant. As she stood to leave, she handed me a small, wrapped package. "I was going to mail this to you after we returned home. Now I suppose I can deliver it in person." Inside was a framed photograph, not one of our formal family portraits, but a candid shot I'd never seen before. Me at about 7 years old, building a sandcastle on Bluewater Cove's beach, intense concentration on my face as I shaped the towers. "You always did like to build things," she said quietly and walked inside. 6 months later, Bluewater Cove Resort had undergone a subtle but comprehensive transformation. We extended the season by 2 months with targeted marketing and special events. The restaurant earned a write-up in food and wine. Bookings for the following summer were already at 90% capacity. I implemented a program called Family Connection, week-long retreats designed for families struggling with communication issues. The package included private beach access, facilitated activities, and optional family counseling sessions. It became our most popular off-season offering. My own family dynamics evolved in unexpected ways. My father retired from Morgan Stanley and began spending 1 week a month at the resort, offering business advice, but mostly just enjoying the peace of the place. Jason eventually left his hedge fund position to become the resort's financial director, bringing his family to live in Maine year-round. He seemed happier than I'd ever known him to be. Amanda started a small event planning service for resort guests, specializing in milestone celebrations. Her eye for detail and design turned even simple gatherings into memorable occasions. Gregory found unexpected satisfaction in the resort's medical partnership program, offering wellness retreats for burned-out physicians. My mother's acceptance came in small, measured doses. She still maintained her Connecticut social circle, but began spending more time at Bluewater Cove, even in the off-season. She never explicitly approved of my purchase, but demonstrated her softening by bringing her garden club for a weekend retreat, introducing me as my daughter, the owner, with something almost like pride in her voice. On the 1-year anniversary of my acquisition, I hosted a special dinner for my family in Villa Serenity. As we sat around the table that had witnessed so many Johnson family dynamics over the decades, I realized how much had changed. "A toast," my father said, raising his glass. "To Harper, who saw potential where the rest of us only saw tradition. You've transformed not just this resort, but in many ways, our family too." Jason nodded. "I haven't worn a suit in 3 months, and my blood pressure is down 15 points. Best career move I never planned to make." "And the children love growing up here," Stephanie added. "They're learning about nature, business, family, all at once." Even my mother offered a small smile. "The summer bookings are quite impressive." The Hendersons couldn't get a reservation, even with my recommendation. We laughed together, the sound of genuine warmth filling the space that had once felt so contentious. Later, walking the grounds of my resort, I reflected on the journey. Buying Blue Water Cove had begun as an act of rebellion, perhaps even revenge. But it had evolved into something far more meaningful, a space where I could finally belong without having to conform, where I could preserve what mattered while reimagining what could be improved. The following morning, I greeted a new family checking in, parents with 3 children, looking tired from travel but excited for their vacation. "Welcome to Blue Water Cove," I said, handing them their room keys personally. "I'm Harper, the owner. If there's anything you need to make your stay more comfortable, please don't hesitate to ask." "This is our first real family vacation in years," the mother confided. "We've all been so busy with our separate lives." I smiled, recognizing something of my own family's journey in her words. "Sometimes the right place can help bridge those separations," I told her. "I hope Blue Water Cove becomes that place for you." As I watched them head toward their villa, I felt a deep satisfaction. In creating a space for others to connect, I'd finally found my own connection, not just with my difficult family, but with a purpose that felt genuinely mine. Have you ever had to create your own space when others wouldn't make room for you? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. I'd love to hear how you turned rejection into opportunity. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that sometimes the best response to being shut out is to build something new. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you the courage to claim your own worth, whatever form that might take.